What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmaker's Corner podcast. It is episode 497. I am recording this intro on February 23rd, 2026 here, and we got your Week 2 2026 Women's College Flag Football recap. We are talking about women's college flag football teams, varsity teams from all over the country. NAIA really took off this week. We had, I think, 25 games that involved an NAIA team. You had junior colleges, the Cali JUCOs, the Florida JUCOs all playing this week. We have D2, D3, D1, a whole bunch of programs playing this week. A jam-packed week of women's college flag football, and you're here at the best source to hear all about what went down this last weekend. Myself, Kodey, and Gino are going to cover all of these games. Myself, I will cover the NAIA level. Gino will cover the D3 and junior college level. And then Kodey will cover the D2 and D1 levels. And so this is basically how it'll work. If there is a game that involves maybe a junior college and NAIA team, if there are stats, then we will only talk about the team who fits the segment. So if it's an NAIA team and a junior college team and it's the NAIA recap, we'll only talk about that NAIA team. You'll have to find the stats on the junior college team on that recap and hear more about it. On top of that, I think as of right now, there's only a couple games here, but we have a couple games that we singled out as games that we thought were really good and we wanted to do an individual segment on and recap on in detail from play to play here, or basically play by play for the most part. So there you go there. Like I said, this is the recap episode. Make sure you check out the Thursday episode where we are going to talk about rankings, which are changing big time this week, and then all the other recognitions, Playmaker of the Week, Fantasy Points, Players of the Week, and all that great stuff, and an update on our PMC Fantasy League as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hear about all of the women's college flag football games all the way from February 16th to February 22nd, Week 2 of this 2026 season. All right, what's good, y'all? Coach V here, and I got your NAIA recap for Week 2 of the 2026 Women's College Flag Football season. These are games all the way from February 17th to February 22nd, which is the day that I am recording most of these. Now, if there is a game or a team that I do not include in this recap, it's because I did an individual segment because it was that close of a game that I felt like was really good and deserved some individual attention. So let's go ahead and start with our first one, starting with the game on February 17th. We have Hope International traveling all the way from California to number 3 Warner, at least according to our rankings, number 3 Warner. And this really wasn't that close of a game here. Hope would start with the ball, but Lauren Clark would be a menace early on, getting a TFL, as well as Marion Torrero, as well, getting a big-time sack to end up ending that drive. And then Warner would take over and really not look back. They would end up their first 4 drives. They would score on 3 of those, with Catherine Hutchinson at quarterback, finding Jessica Finley, the wide receiver, for touchdowns, getting an early hat trick in this game here. You also had Mariah Gordon, the Florida State transfer, playing flag football for her last year of eligibility. She got a big-time interception that set up the second Jessica Finley, or Hutchinson to Jessica Finley touchdown. And then Warner, like I said, would score on 3 of their first 4 drives. On the drive they did not score on, it was a red zone look even then, and it was just overthrown at the end. And so, like I said, Warner would score on their first 4 drives, or first 3 drives, and would not look back. Final score of this one here, 66-0 in Warner's home opener. And an unfortunate start to Hope International's road trip here, as this would be the first of a couple games they would play here in Florida. Let's go ahead and look at the stats. Let's start with Warner. Catherine Hutchinson, 32 of 43, 331 yards, 9 touchdowns. I would probably call her the playmaker of the game in this one. It seemed like very early on that she was extremely sharp with the football, throwing all over the field to all of her receivers, spreading the ball around, making some great throws. Sure, were there a couple missed throws? Yeah, but you can't complain about 9 touchdowns. You just can't. Also, no turnovers, which you gotta feel good about. Receiving wise, it was Jessica Finley who picked off where she left off last year. 8 receptions, 102 yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. I know Gino, who has both her and Anna Vincenzini, was very excited with her fantasy points performance in this one with those 4 here. But right behind Jessica Finley, I gotta shout out the Colorado native, friend of the podcast, got to actually cover her first varsity flag football game here in Colorado here. Avalon Lux Offerman in her first college game for Warner against Hope International had herself a day. 11 receptions, which led the team in this one. 76 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. A hat trick for the standout freshman who made our all freshman list in the preseason. So shout out Avalon. Proud of her putting on for Colorado, and I know everyone here is really excited to see her ball out and is absolutely rooting for her, as are we, because we're a little bit biased. So shout out Avalon. Congrats to her first career touchdowns, first hat trick as well. Right behind her, though, Anna Vincenzini, always involved. 6 receptions, 71 yards, a touchdown. Mariah Gordon did not disappoint in her college flag football debut either, at least varsity-wise. 3 receptions, 38 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Maggie Lauber right behind her, 3 for 25, and Kaylee Thomas, 2 for 24. Defensively, though, Warner really impressed in this game. This isn't a bad Hope International team here. Got to watch them play a little bit last week. And so for this defense to do what they do, this is a lot about what they got moving forward here. But Adriana Brusmeyer led them 6 flagpoles and a sack here. Marion Torrero led in sacks, though, with 3. Adriana Williams also had a sack as well. Lauren Clark, by the way, second in flagpoles with 5 here. Anna Vincenzini had an interception, and then Mariah Gordon, OMG, had an interception as well, as his Warner defense popped off with a shutout here in game 1. Now for Hope, it was just a tough go. This was really their first taste of true top-tier women's college flag football, and it was tough as expected. They started with Anaí Morales at quarterback. She went 9 of 17 for 63 yards, did throw 2 interceptions, but she was constantly under pressure as the speed of the game just seemed like a lot. They subbed in Nia Gilly at one point, but she didn't really do too much better. No turnovers, 10 of 16 for 64 yards, which is one better than Morales, but still, both quarterbacks sacked a total of 5 times here. Rushing-wise, didn't really get too much. Janiyah Haley was their leader with 16 here. Morales had 9 on 5 attempts. And then receiving-wise, their lead receiver was Jasmine Cimental, 2 for 32. Nicole Cruz right behind her, though, with 6 for 31. Janiyah Haley, 5 for 26. Layla Mays, 3 for 23. And Madison Powell, only 3 for 15, and no touchdowns scored in this one, as Hope just could not find a rhythm. Lead flag pullers for them, Lena Fogo, 7 flag pulls, and then Janiyah Haley and Natalie Uravalo each had 4 flag pulls each, but not enough to take down Warner, who cruises through their season opener with a 66-0 win, while Hope International looking to turn it around in their next game, which would be the next day, February 18th. And so let's go ahead and talk about those games. But first, let's talk about the other game that happened before we talk about Hope's next one here. And that is Florida Gateway College playing at Bruton Parker Christian. Florida Gateway, the JUCO champs of the last couple years. Bruton Parker Christian, a first-year team who got some wins, got some losses here in week 1, week 0, but looking to challenge themselves with their toughest opponent to date. And it was a tough game. At half, it was 22-6 Florida Gateway. Bruton Parker Christian, kind of hanging in there. If they got a score in the third, it would have been a one-score game, but Florida Gateway would have a 13-point fourth quarter and close them out, winning 35-6. Let's go ahead and peep the stats here for Bruton Parker Christian. Sienna Johnson, 15 of 31, 125 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 pick, only took 2 sacks there, had -9 rushing yards though. Receiving-wise, Denasia Leonard Potts led, 2 for 58 and a touchdown. Kinsley Gurenyi, I want to say, 2 for 32, and then Tamaria Williams led in reception, 6 for 30, and then only the 1 touchdown to Leonard Potts there. On defense, Mari Nyden once again leading this team in flag pulls, 7 pulls for them. Kinsley Gurenyi, 5 flag pulls right behind her and 2 tackles for loss, but no turnovers for Bruton Parker Christian. Honestly, their defense really wasn't an issue. I mean, they held them to 0 in the third, which is something, right? It was a 2-score game. It just came down to the offense, and they just really couldn't get anything going here, at least consistently after that initial touchdown, I believe in the first quarter, and that was tough. That was tough for them as this Florida Gateway team was too much. Now, shout out my guy Gino. He will be also recapping this game. He will go over the Florida Gateway stats later in his recap. But for now, Bruton Parker Christian drops a tough one, 35-6 as expected, but we'll be looking on and moving forward. Moving on though, let's go ahead and talk about Hope International's second road trip game of the season, but it is Weber International's opening game of their season here. Weber ranked by us at 9th, technically tied for 9th here, and with good reason as they do return the majority of their supporting cast here, but with a change at quarterback for the first time in years, Sam Wilson will not be starting the season for them. It would actually be Luz Ariana Herrera, who I talked about in our season preview. I think I called her Ariana Herrera, so that's what I'm going to call her, but in case you're listening to this and you don't want to be called that, just let us know, and we will make sure to correct that right away here. And they would go ahead and play a Hope International team who, you know, is playing their second game in a long road trip where they already lost by a whole bunch to Warner. And unfortunately for them, not as bad as the Warner game, but this game was over pretty early on here. Weber would be winning 26-0 at half, and the final score would actually end up being 38-0. Hope International once again being shut out as Weber starts strong here. Like I said, some questions at quarterback. Who would it be? How successful they would be? But Ariana Herrera answered the call here, and it looks like it is the Herrera era as she showed out in her debut. 27 of 38, 353 yards, 6 touchdowns, no turnovers, and 5 rushing yards as well, which is great. Really, Cam, another freshman quarterback, also got in there 2 for 2 for 5 yards here, but a very successful showing for Weber. And, you know, a showing like this, you know, when your quarterback plays great, everything's going well, you gotta feel really good about that. I'd have to look up what Sam Wilson's first start was, but this might be the record for the most passing yards and touchdowns by a freshman in her first start. We will see, though. I will double check that later. Receiving yards, though, Cheyenne Duran will actually lead the receiving group in receiving yards. 6 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown. But it was Caitlin Sigmundy who really showed out in this one. As expected, 8 receptions, 70 yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns as she is about to enter a tear her senior year. Emma Balako also had a 50-yard touchdown. Yasmin Lott, 5 receptions, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Riley Bolser, a little bit of a quieter game, but a good one. Coming back, though, 4 for 28. Of seeing her back and healthy after missing all of last year. And then speaking of being back, Savannah Cox in her return to flag football, 3 receptions, 25 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Talked about her in the preview, and also a very long time ago got to break down her film back when she was in high school and got offered by Midland. So great to see her back and playing for Weber. Hey, shout out the Leonard girls here, Herrera, Sigmundy, Balak, Taco, Cox, all of them played great in this opening one for Weber. Now on the defensive side, Riley Bolser really made it known on defense that she would be there and hold it down. 9 flagpoles as she led the team, 3 pass breakups as well. Kalia Gator picking up where she left off, 4 flagpoles and 2 sacks for the young rusher. And then Caitlin Sigmundy adding an interception to her total. Emma Blanco adding an interception to her total as well as they win big. I would have to say the playmaker of this game would have to be Caitlin Sigmundy. 8 receptions, 70 yards, 3 touchdowns, also an interception, setting the tone, which we knew she would. A close second, though, is Ariana Herrera, who played great, 27 of 38, 353 yards and 6 touchdowns, as Weber starts the season 1-0. Now for Hope, continuing to try to figure out a little bit more offensive production for them. Anae Morales, only 9 pass attempts though, 6 of 9 for 67 yards and 1 interception, was sacked 2 times. And then it looked like Nia Gilly got a little bit or a lot more pass attempts here, 13 of 22, so 22 attempts to Morales' 9 for 60 yards and an interception. Not too much more, productive, but still decent. Morales also had 20 rushing yards though, so you can't count that out, as Hope is trying to figure out, just how to get some sort of rhythm going playing these tough teams. Receiving wise though, we did see Madison Powell get back on track, 6 receptions, 71 yards, no touchdowns though, but not too much after Powell. Cemental 2 for 13, Nicole Cruz 4 for 10, Layla Mays 3 for 7, Anna Sedic only 1 for 7 here. Morales also had a reception for 6 yards, so not too much going on the receiver side of things. Defensively, Larissa Perez led with 7 flagpoles. Samantha Myers had a sack, but not too much going for Hope, as it was better from a production standpoint. Still a tough loss for Hope, who drops yet another game to another ranked team here. And it doesn't get easier, as they do play number 9 St. Thomas at Miami Gardens. But I am actually not going to talk about that game on this recap. You could find that segment a separate one on its own, as Hope, they learned a little bit through these first 2 games and persevered. That ended up being an instant classic against St. Thomas, so make sure you check out that segment after this one, because that game would take place on February 19th, where we're going to talk about all the other ones. That Hope St. Thomas game would actually be the last one of the day. So like I said, check that one out after this one. Let's go ahead and hop into number 2 Kaiser in their home opener, hosting D2 Lise McRae. Lise McRae with some big wins last week against a club team, right? North Carolina Central, but they put up some big numbers. You have some experience over there, as you have a couple of the fierce freshies from William Woods and Mackenzie Hicks, and Natalia Hernandez de Leon, and Kennedy Van Noy and Jaden Jalbert, just to name a few, transferring for Lise McRae and playing for them. So not completely inexperienced, but they are playing a stacked number 2 Kaiser team in the country, and number 2 for a reason, as Kaiser started out this game hot, scored in the first, and then had a 26-point second quarter. Yes, you heard that correctly. 26 points in the second, as they would be leading 33-0 at halftime. They would not look back, as they would end up winning this one 47-6 for Kaiser. It is a new era. Ava Wallace was their starting quarterback, and she showed out in this game. 12 of 24, 195 yards, 6 passing touchdowns. Did throw 1 interception though, but was dominant as the starter. You also had Adrian Rivera, who, historically, Kaiser, they have played 2 quarterbacks and have developed 2 quarterbacks in a season before. But Rivera, the fellow freshman, because they're up by so much, got a lot more passing attempts than, maybe some other freshman quarterbacks would. 11 of 15, 115 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Also adding on 40 rushing yards on only 3 attempts. The freshman quarterbacks playing great here, as it is a new era in Kaiser flag football. Receiving wise though, lead receiver continuing and helping out that new era is the transfer from Florida Gateway, Tramisha Harris. 3 receptions, 3 touchdowns, 100 yards, every time she touched the ball, she scored on offense. That is how dominant this team is. You also had Dakota Moberg with 3 for 44. Ashley Clam, only 2 receptions for 34 yards and a touchdown. But when you have the weapons that Kaiser has, you do not need an Ashley Clam to be as great as she is, even though she already is probably the best player in the country. You have Madison Koger, 3 for 28 and a touchdown. Sophia Caprio, 3 for 28 and a touchdown. Brooke Bowman, 3 for 21. Olivia Rijo, 1 for 19. Sarah Villarreal, 3 for 15 and a touchdown. And then it looks like Ava Wallace also caught a reception here as well as Caroline Jays to round out that receiving group. Notably, no Janasia Wilson, it seems like, and no Brenna Ramirez in this game, which is definitely scary if you are other teams. Kaiser's defense, though, showed out, only allowing 1 touchdown, but Dakota Moberg, 7 flagpoles, 2 pass breakups. Tramisha Harris also had an interception in this game. Kylie Quintano had a sack here. Sarah Villarreal had an interception in this one. Koger had an interception, and Ashley Clam, per usual, had an interception in this game, as they dominated in this one. And I would have to say my playmaker of the game would have to be Tramisha Harris, who just stood out in this one. 3 receptions for 3 touchdowns, 100 yards. Also had an interception on defense. She was dominant in this one. A close second, though, is definitely Ava Wallace, who was wheeling and dealing in this one here in her first career game. Also throwing her first career touchdown. So congrats to her and Adrian Rivera, who were able to score their first ones. I think Madison Koger as well, being able to score her first career touchdown in this one. Now, I'm not going to talk about Lise McRae. I believe Kodey is going to be talking about them. I could be wrong here. Yes, Kodey will be talking about Lise McRae in his D2 recap. So make sure you go ahead and check that stat line that he will be dropping here as he talks about them. Moving on, though, we're going to talk about Thomas. Number 9, Thomas, tied with Weber, actually, in the country, playing at Emmanuel last week. Undefeated, right? But maybe a little bit shaky. This game, a dominant win. Started out a little slow, though. We'll say this. At halftime, it was 7-6. But they would then go ahead and score 25 unanswered points in the second half. That is exactly the type of dominant performance you want to see from this Niger Seals coached squad here as they continue to stay undefeated. Let's go ahead and look at the stats for Thomas. Destiny Lockett, 8 of 17 for 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Ariana Christian, I believe, not Azariah Christian, which is what's listed in this box score, but Ariana Christian, 6 of 13, 82 yards to throw, 1 pick here, -9 yards, but Destiny Lockett also had 31 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Receiving wise, Ariana Christian did a lot of her damage as she's been on a tear, really emerging as one of their top weapons on this team here. 3 receptions, 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nneka Dean, 5 for 34. Azariah Greer, 2 for 31. Maya Richards, only 1 for 30. And then Janessa Lyons, 1 for 26, as this Thomas offense found a little bit more success. But it is the Thomas Nighthawks defense is their calling card, and they performed here. Ulysses Hodgson, 10 pulls to lead this team. Ayana Harris with a sack here and a pass breakup. Janessa Lyons also had 2 sacks. Destiny Lockett had 2 interceptions. I believe one of those was a pick 6. Ariana Christian had an interception. Trinity Converse had an interception, as it was an interception party for Thomas as they go ahead and win a big one here, 32-6 over Emmanuel. Now, the last team we're going to talk about, at least from this day, February 19th, is number 14 Thomas going to Florida Memorial to go ahead and play them. And this was, I would say, in the preseason, I anticipated this to be a little bit of a closer game, but Life would go ahead and score 13 in the second to take a 13-0 lead, and they would not look back as this defense performed, shutting out Florida Memorial 26-0 against them. Here are the stats for FMU here. Cheyenne Brooks, 14 of 21, 153 yards, 3 touchdowns. Deshae Branham had 1 touchdown as well, a 1-yard touchdown, it seems like. Rushing-wise, Branham had 20 rushing yards. Brooks had 9. Receiving-wise, Deshae Branham all over. 3 receptions, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. Alora Niederprum, 5 for 51 and a touchdown. And then it looks like Cheyenne Brooks also caught a touchdown as well. It might have been that one from Deshae Branham. Defensively, though, Kira Zachary led with 4 flag pulls and a sack here for this Life team. Actually, before I move on, playmaker of the game, I have to say it's Deshae Branham. Passing touchdown, 40 or 20 rushing yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, 3 for 70. She was all over the place here for Life offensively as she powered this offense, it felt like. For Florida Memorial, some struggles here. Went with a different quarterback than I expected them to start. Valentina Buelas, 9 of 11, 45 yards. No touchdowns, but no picks. She also had 30 rushing yards as well. Miracle Washington also had pass attempts, 3 of 4 for 19 yards. Michaela Pedro, Marcelina Luke, and Amiria Smith all had passing attempts as well, but no touchdowns thrown, no picks either. Audrey Young had 25 rushing yards. Receiving-wise, only one receiver really kind of stand out here. NAIA Brim, 5 for 34. Everyone else, Kelsey Williams, 1 for 15. Makaya Pedro, 3 for 8. Amiria Smith, only 3 for 7 here. Just not much going for FMU. Defensively, Melanie Duff led with 4 flag pulls, but they had no sacks, no interceptions. Not a great start to the season. I thought maybe this would be a game, maybe where they could, catch Life off guard here. And with it being a closer game, you never know, right? But it just did not end up being this way. Life, it took them a little bit to get going, but when they got going, and just did not look back as Life starts the season 1-0 here, I believe. I want to say, let me just double check. I believe, yes, that was their season opener. So that's a big win for Life to start. For FMU, that's a tough one to start the season as well. All right, now moving on to Friday, February 20th, we have a couple more NAIA games here. Number 13, Campbellsville would be playing LaGrange, I believe. I want to say a D2 program, either D2 or D3, but they would go ahead and play them. This would be Campbellsville's opening game against them, and they would win big, 66-6 against them. This one was over very, very quickly here. Let's go ahead and look at the stats. Corinne Talkington had a great game, 13 of 19, 167 yards, 4 touchdowns. Played so well, they put in other quarterbacks. Samani Scott, 8 of 12, 88 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kirsten Pasma even got in, 9 for 25, 77 yards, threw her first career touchdown as well. 2 touchdowns and did throw 1 pick, but it is what it is. Rushing-wise, Reagan Coop, 25 rushing yards, Talkington at 13, Autumn Spain with 8, Monica Morales 5, Amani Scott 3, Pasma 2. Receiving-wise, Natalia Gomez had a big time game here in her first career game, scoring her first touchdowns here. 9 receptions, 87 yards, 3 touchdowns, lethal after the catch for Campbellsville, as it looks like they have found another receiving threat here to turn it up for them. But as expected, Alex Odom taking a step forward, only 4 receptions, but 75 yards and 2 touchdowns there. Monica Montez, another player who I believe, I want to say, it's her second year technically as well, but it felt like a little bit of a breakout game from her. 6 of 66 and a touchdown for her. Carly Troutman, always reliable, 3 for 41 and a touchdown, and then Reagan Coop with a receiving touchdown in this one. Defensively, Tamaya Woody really stood out here and played well. 9 flag pulls leading the team. But Amani Scott, the quarterback, now playing linebacker here, 5 flag pulls in this one, 2 for loss, and 3 interceptions for Campbellsville, as she is looking to emerge as that linebacker opposite of Woody there. Rashia Minnick, Brooks, though, did her thing. 4 flagpoles, 3 sacks. Shout out Madison Medlin Wittenborn, another Colorado player right here from Doherty. Got her first career flagpoles, 2 of them here in this one. Then you also had interceptions from Michaela May, Trinity Chisholm, and Monica Montez. Now, playmaker of this game, I think, has to be Corinne Talkington. She got out to such a fast start here that this game just got way away from LaGrange. 13 of 19 for 167 yards and 4 touchdowns, also 13 rushing yards. She looked very, very sharp in the first half of this game as they go ahead and take care of LaGrange 66-6. Now, the other game from this day, we had number 7, or at least as of last week, number 7 St. Thomas coming off a heartbreaking loss the night before, playing number 14 Life, who, unlike them, won by big before. They would go ahead and play in this game, and, really nothing would happen. It would be tied pretty much. Well, it would be tied throughout this whole game, 0-0. That would be the score at regulation, as this game would go into overtime, the second one for St. Thomas already this year here against a team in Life who, last year was a little bit of a closer game, and then this game just felt a lot closer. But let's go ahead and get into overtime. Sharice Newton would end up finding Leah Cruz for the touchdown out of 4 yards, and then Newton would go ahead and run it in to get that first PAT and make it 7-0. Life needs to score here. Here's how it goes down. Branham runs for 5. Cheyenne Brooks ends up running here, but is taken down by NAIA Leon for a loss of 1. Then you have an incompletion, and so that brings up 3rd and goal here. Branham would find Latoya Mitchell for 4, and then Branham on 4th down would just run it in for 2 yards to go ahead and score. Now, to go ahead and get the PAT, it would be a Deshae Branham run, but St. Thomas would stop her. No 5 overtimes for them. They ended in this one here as St. Thomas beats Life 7-6. Not a very, just did not feel like a very clean game by either team here. Just some struggles to finish drives. And so here are the stats. Cheyenne Brooks, 25 for 43, 201 yards, 1 interception. Deshae Branham, 1 of 1 for 4. Branham led with 4 rushing yards. Brooks sacked 3 times, by the way. Receiving wise, Caitlin Gibson actually led in receiving, 4 for 65 here. Deshae Branham not too far behind her though, 9 for 63. And then Laura Niederprum, 4 for 34. Latoya Mitchell, 6 for 28. Altiera Gooch, a really quiet start to the season, not really doing too much, 1 for 9. For Life here. Defensively, it was Uzziah Rumpf, I want to say, 5 flagpoles. Promise Cooper had 3 interceptions, so unfortunately, just a waste of a defensive performance here. I think it's Umai Gay had an interception, and then Kennedy Robinson with an interception for Life. So 4 interceptions and could not win this one. For St. Thomas, though, not much better. At quarterback, the struggles continue. Sharice Newton, 9 of 15, 73 yards, 1 touchdown, but threw an interception as well. You had Leah Cruz, who took more snaps than her by 2, 10 for 17, 71 yards, but an ugly 4 interception performance here. Leah Cruz would catch that touchdown in overtime, though. 3 receptions and 22 yards for her. Nyla Geiger, the standout freshman receiver, performed again, 4 receptions, 50 yards. Alex Harris, again, having another great game, or decent game, I thought. 5 for 39 for them. Cameron Campbell, 2 for 13. Jasmine Henry, only 2 for 11 in this one. Defensively for St. Thomas, they also played well. Alex Harris led with 7 flagpoles. Lanaya Leon playing more rusher in this one. 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, and 6 flagpoles as she looks to be back, and paired with a very talented Tajaya Chance, who had 5 pulls and a sack in this one. Mia Hastings had their single interception of the game as St. Thomas kind of gets away with one, 7-6. But like I said, St. Thomas was ranked a couple of spots ahead of Life here. This being a closer game and them losing the turnover battle and still winning in overtime, it just does not seem like a very I would say, confident win. But we'll see. Make sure you check out that segment I do of their game from the previous night against Hope here, which was a 6 or 5 overtime game, and it was a long night for them. Where, there's some struggles there as well. And so St. Thomas in a tough spot here, but they still win. Playmaker of the game, I mean, I feel like it should probably be NAIA Leon. I thought, she really brought it for this defense, and, they didn't really allow any points until OT. And then on top of that, in OT, they would end up winning by stopping the extra points. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it to NAIA Leon here, who looks to be back in form and played very well for St. Thomas in this one as they take down Life 7-6 in OT. All right, now moving on to Saturday the 21st. We have the majority of our NAIA games here. Let's go ahead and get it started. Number 6, Milligan playing unranked Bruden Parker Christian at Bruden Parker Christian. This would be Milligan's season opener, and they would go ahead and take care of them pretty early on here, amassing a 24-point lead, and that's actually how much they would end up winning by 24-0 here. Not scoring in the second half, but getting off to a fast start as they do get that win for Milligan. Let's go ahead and look at the stats that we have for them. Bridget Kaiser, I would say a decent game here, but definitely highlighted by some struggles here, just a little bit. 23 of 39, 254 yards, did throw 2 touchdowns, but had 2 interceptions, took 4 sacks. Definitely some rust to shake off here. Receiving-wise, Ashton Weirley led the squad here, 6'4", 90, and a touchdown. Krista Quinn, productive as ever, 3 for 54, no touchdowns, but Lily Rumrell here had 4 for 51 and a touchdown. Abby Lynn Laprise in her return after missing all of last year, 3 for 27, and then Caitlin Quinn, 3 for 20. Defensively, Sakia Newell, 3 flag poles, which led the team in a sack. Chloe Jackson had a pick, Parker Bridges had a pick, and Annabelle Rhodes also had a pick, but not too much more going for them as they gave Bruden Parker Christian some issues. But for Bruden Parker Christian, once more, some struggles from the offense. Sienna Johnson, 7 of 29, 77 yards, 3 picks, did have 18 rushing yards. Receiving-wise, Malikia, I want to say, or Malika. Fudge had 2 receptions for 36. Kishana Gooseby, 1 for 26. Sierra O'Brien, only 1 for 8 in this one. Defensively, it was Wainaja White, who had 8 flagpoles, and then Sophia Souza had another great game here, another multi-sack game. She had 4 sacks in this one, and then Fudge had an interception, and Mari Nyden has another interception. Defensively, not doing too bad, really picking it up in that second half as they kind of shut them out there, but Milligan going ahead and scoring early and often here. It looks like, to me, I believe, they had a couple interceptions, or I want to say 2, returned for a touchdown here, as they would end up winning 24-0. A win's a win, but a little bit of a rusty start for them. I think Playmaker of the game is also really tough to pick, but I'm probably going to go ahead and go with Ashton Weirley here, who was very productive, gave this offense some life, and got them going here, as this offense just did not have maybe the cleanest game here, but it's the first game of the season. They will definitely get better, and they will take this 24-0 win. Moving on, we have Lindsey Wilson, a first-year program who we actually had ranked at 19 in our polls here. But Lindsey Wilson goes ahead and plays Chowan University. I think it's either Chowan. I'm not sure exactly actually how you say that, but they are a D2 playing in the Conference Carolinas, and Lindsey Wilson in their opening game dominated 87-0. That ties the largest margin of victory, as I believe Daytona State beat Andrew College 87-0 last week. So Lindsey Wilson matches that in their first game ever here, 87-0. And let's just look at the stats here. Amaya Pablo started for them, but played so well that the other quarterback got to play, or backup got to play, and she played well too. But Amaya Pablo, 10 of 11, one incompletion in her first game, but 164 yards and 7 passing touchdowns. Yes, you heard that correctly. 7 touchdowns from the freshman. Played so well that her backup got in there. I think it's Jaylee, or I want to say it's Jaylee Santiago. 15 of 22, 207 yards, 5 touchdowns, and an interception as they dominated. But really, it was Cadence Wormers who had herself a game in this one. The transfer from Warner, 9 receptions, 119 yards, 6 receiving touchdowns. I do believe that is the most receiving touchdowns by a player in a game so far this season, but she showed out. I think it's Tyria Tanner, 3 for 79 in a touchdown. Jenna Lindsay, 2 for 70 in a touchdown. Carly Yoakley, 5 for 30 in a touchdown. Jade Mazziata, the other Warner transfer, 2 for 28 and 2 touchdowns. And then Emily Good, 1 reception for an 18-yard touchdown. Defensively, they played really well too, though. Emily Good, as expected, the leader of this defense, 14 flagpoles, 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups for them as well. Tyria Tanner, 2 interceptions for 12 yards. And then Emerson Gregory had a big-time interception as well, as this Lindsey Wilson team hammered Chowan 87-0. And I think I got to pick my playmaker of the game. Cadence Wormers was really close, but I think I got to go with Amaya Pablo, who had a near perfect game, 10 of 11, 164 yards and 7 touchdowns. Played so well that her backup got plenty of time to go in there and also play well here. And that's definitely saying something, as Lindsey Wilson makes a statement in their first game ever as a program against Chowan here, another first-year program, a D2 at that, and they take them down 87-0, a dominant one for Lindsey Wilson. Now, before we move on to our next one, real quick, Hope and Florida Memorial were supposed to play. I don't know exactly what happened, but it looks like that game got canceled. Anyways, moving on, we have number 20, Lisa McRae versus number 9, Thomas here. Interesting enough, was not able to watch this one live here, but according to the box score, no Destiny Lockett in this one. At least it doesn't look like she's here, but it was the, I guess, season opener for freshman Sabrina Schlegelmilch, who was a all-PMC freshman candidate for us, as well as Miri Logan, who we anticipated having a big season with this new look Thomas squad. And Thomas, they played Lisa McRae at Florida Gateway, and they dominated in this one here, winning big time. 40-0. They're up by 20 at half, and then had an explosive fourth quarter where they scored 20 points, as this Thomas team is looking a little dominant here, and that's without Destiny Lockett, it looks like. Ariana Christian at quarterback, 16 of 22, 131 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions though, but made it up with 124 rushing yards and a touchdown, a lot of that coming on a 38-yard rush. She found Sabrina Schlegelmilch for 2 receptions, 35 yards and a touchdown, Eva Jones for 3 for 30 and 2 touchdowns, as well as Miri Logan 4 for 19 and a touchdown. Defensively, once again, it is Hodgson who led this squad, who's having herself a year, but then you also have Jordan Woodward, Azariah Greer, Kennedy Warren Young, and Ariana Christian as well, who all had interceptions on the defensive side of the ball, and gave Lisa McRae a lot of issues here. My playmaker of the game, I think, has to be Ariana Christian, doing it all, passing, rushing, and intercepting, as well as Thomas continues to stay undefeated and get stronger as the year goes on. On to more Sun Conference games here. We have number 2 Kaiser hosting number 14 Life. Both teams having wins this last week, but Kaiser continues to stay hot. It was 20-6 at half, but Kaiser would pull away with 25 points here. 6 in the third, and then another 19 in the fourth to really put this one away. Life would score another one to make it 46-13, but that is your final score. Kaiser taking care of Life 46-13. Looking at the stats here, Ava Wallace with another great stat line here as she continues to get comfortable. 32 of 39, 308 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks, 3 rushing yards. Adrian Rivera, 3 of 3 for 20 yards and a passing touchdown as well. And then, in case I didn't say it, 5 passing touchdowns for Wallace. Receiving wise, still interesting enough, no Janasia Wilson, as well as no Brennan Ramirez, but it was Dakota Moberg who led this team, 6 receptions, 107 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Tramisha Harris, 6 for 60, but no touchdowns here. Ashley Clam, though, will get back on track, 8 for 57 and 2 touchdowns. Sarah Villarreal, 6 for 39, and then Francesca Lara caught a receiving touchdown for 12. Defensively, it was Kylie Caetano and Dakota Moberg who led the squad with 5 pulls each. Caetano with a sack as well. And then you had interceptions from Madison Koger, Tramisha Harris, and Ashley Clam as Kaiser continues to roll. Now, looking at Life here, struggles. Cheyenne Brooks, 13 of 23, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Not too bad, but not enough. Deshae Branham was 3 of 4 passing for 37 yards and a pick as well, though. And then receiving-wise, Altiera Gooch shook off a pretty quiet start to the season. 5 receptions, 108 yards, and 2 touchdowns against this Kaiser defense. Latoya Mitchell right behind her with a 4 for 32, but not too much going here. Deshae Branham only 2 receptions for 7 yards here. Caitlin Gibson, 1 reception for 26, as they didn't really get too much going, and then their defense really struggled here, led by Promise Cooper and Ianoa Garcia Velasco with 9 flag pulls each, but they only got 1 sack from Kara Zachary and then no interceptions, as they also allowed Kaiser to score 46 points here. A tough one if you are Life, but not completely unexpected. They're going to continue to build on that. If you're Kaiser, though, you continue to roll. Playmaker of the game, in my opinion, has to be Ava Wallace. 32 of 39, 308 yards, 5 touchdowns, only took 1 sack. She was as sharp as you can get here, as this Kaiser team is looking dangerous early on in the season. Moving on into more Sun Conference play, we got Point versus Reinhardt, hosting Reinhardt. Reinhardt was hosting, I believe, here. And, this one was not really a close one. At one point, it was 34-0 point here in the second quarter. 35-0 point in the second quarter. Reinhardt would get a score, and then down the line of this game, Point got a little sloppy with the football and had some bad turnovers, but they would still end up winning 49-27 for the most part, handling Reinhardt. And this is kind of a huge win for Point here. I feel like both teams have been kind of on the same level the last couple years, playing some close games, but this is the biggest margin of victory Point has ever had over Reinhardt. Now, like I said, a little sloppy with the ball and the turnovers at the end here, and it shows in some of these stat lines. And so let's go ahead and talk about the stats I got here. Starting with Point, Kariah Williams, even though it was a little bit of a sloppy game, I think she's out the playmaker of the game for this game regardless. My playmaker of the game, at least. 33 of 53, 388 yards, 6 touchdowns, but did throw 4 picks at the end. Also had 59 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. That might be the most productive a Point quarterback has ever been in a game, so that's awesome to see. Kenzie Fillion continues to go on her reign of terror here. 8 receptions for 110 yards and a receiving touchdown. Shanair Shaheed has really emerged as a second option here. 10 receptions, 86 yards and a receiving touchdown, as well as Amara Davila, 4 for 61 and a touchdown. And then Leah Prather scoring a lot here. I think the most experienced Point player for them. She's been with this team since the beginning, I believe, but 7 receptions, 52 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That might be a personal record for her, so congrats to her. Looking at this point defense, NAIA led with 7 flagpoles, a sack, and an interception, being the MVP of this defense. Aaliyah Nathan had a sack as well, and then Shanair Shahid also had a sack in this big-time point win for them. For Reinhardt, it wasn't necessarily the turnovers for them, at least early on, I don't believe so. But, they just didn't get enough production out of their offense. They stalled out too many times. Alexis Wilson, the young quarterback, had an alright stat line, 15 of 27, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Addie Anderson had 4 pass attempts and only 1 completion for a yard, and then she also threw a pick. Wilson, not too much going on the ground, 5 attempts for -1 yards, but through the air it was okay. Victoria Salmon, 5 receptions, 88 yards and a touchdown. Blue McFarland, 3 for 52. Nicole Arus, 1 21-yard touchdown for them. And then defensively, this Reinhardt team, I don't want to say got them back into the game, but they almost did here. I believe they had 2 pick sixes against this point team. One of them was by Kamari Tanzel. She had 2 interceptions in this game as well and 7 flagpoles. The other one was by Kalia Davis, who had a long 60-yard pick 6 as well as 2 flagpoles. Danielle Jones led with 8 flagpoles for this point team. This Reinhardt team, who, they fought. And you got to give them some credit. A 21-point second half is not bad. It just looks bad when you allow 34 in the first half. And then they only allowed 14 in the second. So, they just let this game got away from them. And I will say this, both teams definitely look improved from the year before. So, really excited for both squads. But Point goes ahead and gets away with this one, 49-27. And your playmaker of the game, Kariah Williams, 388 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 59 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown showed out in this one. Okay, now, staying on Saturday games, let's go ahead and move on from the Sun Conference. That was the last Sun Conference game of the day. Let's actually go back north just a little bit here. Lindsey Wilson, number 19, Lindsey Wilson, going ahead and facing off with D3 Virginia Wesleyan, a first-year program. And, oh my God, this was an absolute slaughtering of a game. This game was 111-0. Yes, you are hearing that correctly, and I'm not going to say I watched every minute because this game was pretty much over in the first 3 minutes of the first quarter when they went up by 3 or 4 scores, but I mean, it gets to a point where there's only so much you could do. And also, there's levels to this. Just because you're an NCAA team doesn't always mean you're going to be better. And both of these teams are first-year programs too, which makes us even crazier. But, 111-0. The previous largest margin of victory this season was 86-0, which Lindsey Wilson matched earlier in the day against Chowan, a D2 team. But then against D3 Virginia Wesleyan, they smashed that record, winning by 111 points. That is also a women's college flag football record, I believe. Unless somebody could pull up a stat line or a score that says differently, that wasn't from a scrimmage, this is definitely the biggest margin of victory ever. And it's just, I don't know. Not much you could say except for the numbers, so let's just go ahead and say the numbers here. And I promise I'm trying really hard not to be disrespectful. It just is what it is. So let's go ahead and start with Lindsey Wilson. Amaya Pablo started out this game 15 of 19, 223 yards, 6 touchdowns. Also had 46 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. I believe that was all in the first half. Before Jaylee Santiago took over and also had a great game, 12 of 14, 136 yards, 6 touchdowns as well. No interceptions, I don't believe, and she didn't have any rushing yards either. Receiving wise, Jade Mazziata led in this one, 9 for 95 and 4 receiving touchdowns. That has to be a career high for her. But followed by Cadence Warmers, 7 for 74 and 2 touchdowns. The Warner transfers really showing out for Lindsey Wilson in these first 2 games. And then you have some other stat lines here as well. You have, I believe it's Yokley here, 3 for 59 and 2 touchdowns. Sermon had a touchdown. Tanner had 2 touchdowns. Newton had another touchdown for them as this Lindsey Wilson team was popping off. Defensively for them, though, it was Newton who led with 7 flag pulls, also had 4 sacks. Lindsey added 2 sacks. Mazziata added a sack. Oh my gosh. Ashton Dickerson, 5 interceptions in this one. Emerson Gregory, another 2. Tanner with 1. Mazziata with 1 as well. You really can't complain if you're Lindsey Wilson. And by the way, I gotta say, playmaker of the game, I'm just gonna go with Amaya Pablo. She played great as well. A heck of an opening week for her. Her and Ava Wallace going head to head in that best freshman quarterback conversation, by the way, right off the bat. Which is not exactly unexpected. So there you go there. Big win for Lindsey Wilson. 111-0. Your playmaker of the game is Amaya Pablo. And really the whole team played well. And there's just levels to this. It is what it is. Lindsey Wilson looking to build on this moving forward. All right, now moving back out west, let's go ahead and go to Indiana, where we have a matchup between number 15 Siena Heights at number 22 St. Francis out of Indiana. I believe they were playing in the Indianapolis Colts facility. And it looked like there was a stream set up originally, and then they didn't stream any of the game. And I was following the live scoring for a little bit. So this is kind of what I got. I feel like this is incomplete because as of right now, on both websites, it says it was a tie 18-18, which I know did not happen because I have right here saying that Siena Heights won 24-18 in double overtime, which is what happened, which is a shame that we couldn't watch this game because this sounded like an instant classic. But I don't know. Let's just go through the stats. Actually, sorry, let's go through how this game went here. With 9 minutes, 30 seconds in the second quarter, St. Francis will get on the board with a pass by Gianna Reyes. PAT will be no good, so it would stay at 6-0. Following that, a little bit later in the second, about at the 49-second mark, almost at the end here, Gianna Reyes with another touchdown pass to go ahead and give St. Francis the 12-0 lead going into half. But, or at least it looked like it would be the 12-0 lead going into half, but Brianna Saunders answered back literally 19 seconds later with a touchdown pass of her own. 66 yards on this touchdown pass to go ahead and cut into this lead. So there you go. It would actually be 12-6 going into half. Now, early-ish in the third quarter, Siena Heights would go ahead and get another touchdown pass by Brianna Saunders here. No PAT, but this would happen at the 7-minute mark. Making it 12-12, and then nobody would score, and so we would go into overtime. Here's how overtime would go. Helen Flores would actually complete the touchdown pass for Siena Heights to go ahead and put them up 18-12. Following that, Gianna Reyes would reply back with a touchdown to go ahead and put them up 18-18. And then it looks like to me, because there's no more stats or anything here, it looks like Siena Heights was able to score a touchdown and win this game, and then St. Francis was not able to match. So a thriller of a game between number 15 Siena Heights and number 22 St. Francis. Both teams kind of playing each other close here. So these teams may be closer in rankings than we might have initially thought, which I think is fair, but a great game to open the season for both of these squads. Siena Heights winning 24-18. I do have some stats here, actually, but this is only as of that, I want to say, this has to only be regulation. Sorry, no, it's not. This includes overtime, but not the second overtime. Okay, so let's start with Siena Heights. To be honest, Saunders, 18 of 26, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Helen Flores, though, also got some pass attempts, 8 of 9 for 79 yards, very efficient there. Also had 4 rushing yards to go with that. Mackenzie Pope, 2 of 3 for 22 yards. Madison Smith had a pass attempt, but that didn't go anywhere. Rushing yards wise, it was Saunders who led with 16. Receiving wise, Kiamora Dunn picking up where she left off, had a great season last year, picks it back up with a great performance to start this year. 6 receptions, 121 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Behind her, you have the freshman, I believe, Mackenzie Pope, 8 for 56. Brooke Cooper, 3 for 46. Saunders, 3 receptions, 46 yards here, as well as. And then and then we have some defensive stats here too. Let me go over that real quick. Mackenzie Pope led with 6 flagpoles. Simone, I think it's Fitzer, had a sack, and then nobody had an interception, at least listed here. That is, as Siena Heights would go ahead and take care of St. Francis. Let's go ahead and talk about St. Francis, though. Gianna Reyes in her debut as the starting quarterback for this team. Not a bad, honestly, really not a bad performance here. And actually, for a freshman, for a first-year program, pretty good. Not like a 9-touchdown or 6-touchdown thing like an Ava Wallace or my Pablo, but still pretty good here. 13 of 27, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, 44 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown here. Unfortunately, just not quite enough to help them win this game as good as it was. Harmony Walker, 168-yard reception, and she was their lead receiver as far as yards go. Madison Myers Rabitas, 3 for 35 in a touchdown. Wilma Gardner, 5 for 31 in a touchdown. And then Haley Witherspoon, 1 for 13 in this one. Defensively for St. Francis, though, it looks like, let me reorder that. Ava Cousins led with 10 flagpoles here, followed by Harmony Walker and Madison Myers Rabitas and Sanaya Freeman, all tied at 4. No sacks for this team, but Haley Witherspoon did come up with an interception. A tough one to drop if you're St. Francis, for sure. I mean, this was a double OT game, 24-18 against an experienced squad, which I would say does matter. Like, it's not nothing. But it's a tough one to lose here. They're going to go ahead and look to improve. They play in Tampa, actually, in the beginning of March. And actually, that's going to be the start of a couple games they're going to be playing away in Florida. So that'll be a good test for them. Tough one to drop here. You want to kind of win this one and, start out your season the right way and program history the right way. But, it is what it is. All things considered, this isn't the worst start here. This is definitely a pretty good start for them to build off of moving forward. So, really interested to see what they're going to do this year, and really interested to see what Siena Heights does this year. It looks like that they have a pretty solid squad over there, being able to do what they want offensively, and they were very productive. So, really interested to see how both of these squads moving forward. All right, now let's go ahead and go to Kansas here, where we have number 8 Kansas Wesleyan hosting Heston College here. Heston, now a NAIA program, or recognized as one, or at least competing. Their flag football program is competing as one for the first time this year, playing Kansas Wesleyan in what I would consider to be KCAC league play. I think it is KCAC league play. So, look, this one, I watched a good amount of this game here in the first quarter, and Kansas Wesleyan picked up where they left off. Some changes to the coaching staff, and it doesn't really seem to affect this team. They go ahead and beat Heston College 73-0. A lot of great players making some great plays, picking up where they left off here. And then you have some other players who are stepping up for the ones that they lost last season. Let's go ahead and talk about Kansas Wesleyan Shahira Awada here, who I think is the playmaker of the game in this one. She was near perfect in this game. I don't know if there were too many other quarterbacks in the country who had as close to a perfect stat line as her in game one of this season, but 19 of 21, 251 yards, 6 touchdowns, had more touchdown passes, actually triple the touchdown passes that she had in completions, which was only 2, so that's insane. And then also had 4 rushes for 39 yards and a touchdown. At some point, I mean, it was pretty close to halftime. She was taken out, and Shania Marape would actually make her return to the flag football field. Love seeing her healthy again after missing all of last season, and she was very efficient. 8 of 9 for 64 yards, no passing touchdowns, but did have 51 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And then it also looks like they got another quarterback in there, and Naomi Shannon, 4 of 6 for 47 yards and 2 touchdowns for them, as this offense was rolling. Let's go ahead and look at the receivers, though. Nyjah Green had a good game, 4 receptions, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. Laura Hernandez-Sanchez looked pretty good out there, 4 receptions, 54 yards, no touchdowns though, but that'll come soon. Aaliyah Wood, reliable as always, 5 for 47 and 2 touchdowns. Aaliyah Young, reliable as well, 5 for 45 and 2 touchdowns. Jasmine Whitfield had a little bit of a quieter game, 3 for 39, had the 24-yarder early on though, so that's good. Because Lila Casillion, 2 receptions for 23 yards, and then you also had receiving touchdowns by Kylie Marshall and Ava Durr, as this offense was popping off. But defensively as well, I was really impressed. I thought they did a very good job playing defense, contesting passes all over the field. Let's go ahead and start with their flagpole leaders, Ancienne Rabano and Shania Marape, 3 flagpoles each. Rabano with a pass breakup. Eva DeCesare, I want to say, 1 sack, and I believe that was the only one of the game. She also had 2 flagpoles, which is tied with Zoe Lucas and Ava Durr. And then you had interceptions from Jocelyn Huntsman. Shout out our Colorado native here, friend of the podcast, somebody we actually got to cover here in Colorado when she played in high school. I believe I actually got to cover her first varsity flag football game when it was first sanctioned, and I was really excited to see her get out there and get her first big interception. I thought she was going to score. I thought it was a pick 6. I was so hyped. We were all so hyped here at the podcast seeing her go ahead and grab that big interception. But regardless, still a pretty good game for her first one here. Excited to see what Jocelyn continues to do moving forward. And then Laura Hernandez-Sanchez also had an interception for this team, as this Kansas Wesleyan team looked dangerous. Now let's talk about Heston real quick, because they are still technically NAIA. Alexis Pabon, I think it's Pabon. I could be saying that wrong though. Excuse me if I am. 13 of 40, 50 yards, 2 picks. I will say this, there were a lot of drops by the receivers over there. I thought she looked pretty solid and got the ball out, was throwing accurately. Obviously, as the game went on, you got to force a little bit more here. But it was a tough look by some of her receivers, and it shows in the stat line. Her lead receiver was Destiny Ortiz, 5 receptions, 21 yards. Followed by Emma Fanasteel, 2 for 12. Akiva Brown, 2 for 6. And then everyone else caught 1 pass each. In the KCAC, you got to catch passes, right? And maybe that's an easy fix, right? Or maybe not. We'll see. It could have just been nerves early on. You're playing a great opponent away. It happens, right? But definitely a tough look for the offense as they struggled. Defensively, Michaela Lucas led with 6 flagpoles, but no sacks, no interceptions, no pulls for loss, and that's just tough. Right? And so we'll see how this Heston team responds moving forward. For Kansas Wesleyan, woo, they look good. Like I said, there were some questions about the players that they lost, about the coaching staff, right, going into this one. But this is a massive, massive game to go ahead and start the season. And they actually don't play again until March, where they play Midland at Midland. And so that'll be a nice little game right there. Okay, now let's go down to Alabama, where we're going to go ahead and talk about number 24, or at least tied for 24, Cumberland, a first-year program out of Tennessee, facing off with Huntingdon College here. or excuse me, sorry, they would be facing off with LaGrange here. They would also play Huntingdon, but that'll be later. Let's go ahead and talk about their game against LaGrange. First off, to start the game, the first touchdown in program history is a pick six by Breonna Taylor. That puts them up 6-0 early on. Later on in the third quarter, though, Madison Woodard, their quarterback, finds number 9, Gabby Orsi, to make it, I think, 12-0, and that would be their first offensive touchdown they scored. PAT would be no good there. Later on in this third quarter, Cumberland would get the ball back, and Woodard would find Jalea Cole on a beauty of a deep throw to make it 1st and 3 in the red zone after the turnover they got. But a drop snap pushes them back. Another drop snap hurts them as well, and then an overthrow on 4th down does result in a missed opportunity. Still up 12-0, but it kind of feels like Cumberland is on the verge of running away with this. But in the fourth quarter, LaGrange would go ahead and score early to make it a 1-score game. Jordan Rawlings passing this one. And then she runs it in on the 2-point conversion to make it a close 12-8 game. So like I said, went from teetering on maybe getting out of hand for LaGrange to LaGrange is right back in it here in the fourth quarter. On the following drive here, Cumberland would put together a pretty okay drive. Woodard on 4th and 4 near midfield would find Marley Hyde on a curl to make it 1st and 17 past midfield. As they're using up clock, they're looking to score again, but then a couple sacks and pressures later eventually forces a turnover on downs, and so LaGrange gets a chance to potentially win this game if they score. And so here we go, first down, it's in completion here. Then there's a check down that brings up 3rd and 1 at the 2-minute warning, but Cumberland gets a big time pass breakup to force 4th down. On 4th down, LaGrange gets a snap, they check it down to Madison Powell, but she barely gets the first. It's now 1st and 20. On 1st and 20, the quarterback Rawlings rolls out right, and she throws it deep, but this one is just easily intercepted by Jada Starnes, who pretty much ends this one as Cumberland escapes with a big-time win, 12-8 over LaGrange, their first one in program history. Got some quick stats from this one, just for Cumberland though, since it is the NAIA recap. Madison Woodard, in her debut game, 23-41, 197 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Also, -7 rushing yards on 5 attempts here. I don't know if they're counting sacks, though, so we'll see. Receiving-wise, Jalea Cole led 5 for 80. Marley Hyde, 8 for 66. Gabby Orsi, 5 for 28 and a touchdown. And then Trinity Ryan, 4 for 16. Defensively, Breonna Taylor, 8 flagpoles, that 1 pick 6. You also have Ava Horgan, I want to say, or Oregon, 6 flagpoles and a sack. Jade Starnes had 2 interceptions, and then Jocelyn Diaz had an interception. Playmaker of the game for me, I believe, probably has to be Breonna Taylor. That pick 6 at the beginning, I think, really set the tone for this team and allowed them to win it at the end through another interception. This time made, though, by Jada Starnes. But, a win's a win. Cumberland, they go ahead and move on from this one, winning a close one, 12-8. And they would go ahead and play Huntingdon College next. And, this was just not a close game. At half, it was 28-0. Huntingdon would end up beating Cumberland 48-0. Now, mind you, Cumberland was ranked ahead of Huntingdon. When we do our rankings, we keep in mind all varsity teams, NAIA, JUCO, NCAA, right? And Huntingdon, they had a good week this week. I think their one loss so far this season was a 2-point loss to Campbellsville, and that maybe should have told us something. But they go ahead and they make a statement win here, 48-0 over Cumberland. Let's go ahead and go over Cumberland's stats. They just really couldn't get anything going after the catch. Madison Woodard, 16 of 29, 59 yards, 1 pick, no touchdowns. They had to sub in Marley Hyde, who was 6 of 14, 31 yards, 26 rushing yards as well. Just not doing too much. Receiving-wise, Marley Hyde, 4 receptions, 38 yards. Trinity Ryan had 5 for 8. And then you really had nobody else with over 7 receiving yards, which is just something that you cannot have. Defensively, Shania Robinson and Avery Conger, 4 flagpoles each. Robinson with an interception, but not nearly enough to stop this high-powered Huntingdon offense. And then offensively, I mean, it just felt like they were trying to run the ball too much. Gabriela Herrera, -5 yards. Madison Woodard, -8 there as well. Just not much going on for them. A lot of drives just fizzling out here. And, that's part of being a first-year program. You're going to win one day, and then the next day, you might just get your butt whooped. What I am interested in seeing is how Cumberland is going to respond after this and see what this team looks like moving forward. I did not expect them to lose to a Huntingdon. I believe, even in the preview, I expected them to win. But, this is just a tough loss right here. So we'll see what happens. Cumberland doesn't play into March, and they're going to play a Graceland team who I don't know if they have a head coach yet. We'll see. Before playing Huntingdon again and King University a couple days after that. So we'll see how Cumberland responds moving forward. But for now, they drop this one big here. Okay, now the last NAIA games I want to talk about involves Kodey. They are the only NAIA team here, and they play Concordia, who is currently a club team, but they will be a varsity D3 team next year, and then Prairie View A&M in a similar boat as well. They go down to the University of Mary Hardin Baylor down in Texas to play these two teams in, I mean, this should count as games that they're playing, so I don't want to say exhibition, but they would go ahead and play them in out-of-conference games down in Texas. And I had it on in the background because it got out of hand pretty quickly, I felt like, but they have not posted any replays or box scores or even the scores. It is currently February 23rd, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, so I feel like I have waited long enough. Here's what you need to know. Kodey actually wins both of these by multiple scores. Concordia, they beat them by at least 2 or 3 scores. And then Prairie View A&M, I feel like, was worse. They might have beat him by 4 scores there. And it just got out of hand pretty quickly here. Renaya Griffin looked pretty good, was throwing some dots out there, throwing vertical and whatnot. Shout out to Maya Squire as well, who had some big-time catches deep that really got this team going and, really put the nail in the coffin to these young Texas teams who just don't have as much experience as Kodey. And even though it is Kodey and, maybe they're not the best NAIA program, at least to start right now, they looked pretty good here. They also have a number of other players who played for them, but their numbers were not listed. And so when I was taking notes, it was just really hard to figure out who was who, because I would just have had to say in a lot of numbers. And also, like I said, not really a close game. So there you go. But Kodey, hey, starts out 2-0. They get Bethel and Pratt Community College next week, which I think are some favorable matchups, some matchups that might be a little bit closer. So we'll see how that goes in their next 2 games. But for now, Kodey 2-0 versus the teams in Texas. And that will wrap up our NAIA recap. Jeez, an hour 12 long, just about hour 13 long. Thank you for rocking with us. Coming up, we got some individual NAIA games that were played that I felt like deserved their own segment, and we're hype. All right, now, I've been waiting to talk about this game. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's talk about the matchup between Hope International out of California, first-year program, and according to our rankings as of last week, number 7, St. Thomas out of Miami, Florida here. Going into this game, Hope had some tough games. This was the 3rd game of this long road trip here. They lost by a lot to both Warner and Weber, and it really wasn't close at any point. And so going into this game, you have another top 10 Sun Conference team. That was the similar expectation. But let's just go ahead and hop right into it. So I will say this, there were some stream issues. By the time I was able to get in there, it was about the second quarter with roughly around 41.6 seconds left here. And the score was 14-6 with St. Thomas in control. According to the announcers for St. Thomas, it looked like that they were rotating quarterbacks between their quarterbacks Sharice Newton and then Leah Cruz, who have both been on the team. And so here we go, 14-6, 41.6 seconds left here. Hope is driving. They have a red zone look, and here's what happens. Ana Morales finds Nicole Cruz on the drag route to go ahead and make it 12-14 and cut into this lead. But on the PAT, Morales is sacked by, I think it's Tajaya Chance, and they were going for 2 there, so that's a pivotal sack there to go ahead and maintain the lead. And so here we go, St. Thomas with about 41 seconds left. Leah Cruz in at quarterback, finds a good rhythm here, starting with a throw short to Cameron Campbell, giving them a first. They go ahead and call a timeout up 37 seconds. Following that, Leah Cruz finds a standout freshman wide receiver, Nyla Geiger, on the slant to make it 2nd and 3 approaching midfield. Another timeout is called at 29 seconds. Cruz then goes back to, I think it's Alex Harris on the curl left, who gets the first and most importantly gets out of bounds. That saves some time here. So now it's 1st and 12 past midfield. They throw another curl, this time right to Geiger, who gets out of bounds again. So now it's 2nd and 5 with about 19 seconds left. This is beautiful clock management so far by St. Thomas, as they are past the halfway point downfield. And then out of the timeout here, after that second down play here, Leah Cruz gets a snap and throws a beauty of a deep bomb to Alex Harris down the left sideline, and she makes a great catch to go ahead and put St. Thomas up 20-12 and extend this lead for St. Thomas. PAT would be no good, but they would take the knee here. St. Thomas up by 8 points. Now, here in the third quarter, it was a pretty quiet third quarter. Hope would start with the ball with a chance to potentially cut back into the lead, but after getting a first down, they would punt it. St. Thomas would go with Newton back at quarterback here, but after getting them past midfield in a 1st and 20, that drive would end up fizzling out thanks to a very nice diving deflection by Jasmine, I think it's Cimental, to go ahead and force a turnover on downs. Well, then Hope would go 3 and out. St. Thomas would then take over after the punt. Leah Cruz back at quarterback. They get rolling for a decent amount here until they find themselves in a 4th and 5 situation. Cruz runs around, and she does complete this pass here, but it's an illegal forward pass, and she's definitely in front of the line of scrimmage. So now they replay 4th down. Originally, I thought it might be a loss of a down, but it wasn't. In the end, though, it doesn't matter. Cruz throws an interception pretty much directly to, I think it's Nala Nelson that's just a massive mistake right there. Doesn't get a long return, but, that is an opportunity for St. Thomas to potentially get into the red zone, and they don't. And so here we go. 1st and 16 approaching midfield with about 37 seconds left in the third quarter. It's a direct snap to number 1 for them. That is Janiyah Haley, who goes ahead and makes it 2nd and 6 here. Nice 10-yard gain. Following that, Morales gets a snap, zips a tough pass over the middle to Cimental, who gives him a 1st and 17 pass to midfield. And that's where the quarter ends, as Hope is driving downfield here in the 4th quarter, to start the 4th quarter. And so here we go, 1st and 17. Morales finds Haley, who slips, unfortunately, so it's only a gain of a yard. 2nd down here, it's another check down forced by the rusher Chance, who then hawks down the check down for a loss, which is crazy. So now it's 3rd and 18. And on 3rd and 18, Morales throws the curl left to number 8, Layla Mays, who makes a nice move here and makes it a more manageable 4th and 1, just on the edge of the red zone. And so here we go, 4th and 1. They need to get it here. Morales gets a snap on the run, getting chased down by 2 rushers, so throws a dot to Madison Powell in the back of the end zone to make it 18-20. Hope calls a timeout before this key 2-point conversion here, but they go ahead and run it. It's no good. There is a flag, but but basically it was against Hope, so the play stands here. So still trailing by 2 at the top of the fourth or near the top. Not too bad there if you are Hope, just getting something. But St. Thomas, they are back at it, and it's Cruz at quarterback here. She goes in and finds Alex Harris, who spins for some extra yards. But on that play, Leah Cruz goes down. Looks to be a cramp, maybe a calf cramp here. And so they have to go with Newton in at quarterback. She finds number 5, Chance in the flats, who gets a decent gain to make it 1st and 16 past midfield. Now we're rolling here. Newton finds Harris on the curl, who then pitches it to Jasmine Henry, who almost scores here, but is stopped short of the end zone. It's now 1st and 15 in the red zone. St. Thomas is rolling. Newton then finds Geiger to go ahead and give them 4 more yards. She then finds Harris at the flats, but she is stopped after a 3-yard gain. And then on 3rd down, it's an incomplete pass as she's under pressure. So now that brings up, a key 4th down with about 6:15 left. If St. Thomas could get this, they could go ahead and move to closing this game. And so here we go. Newton gets a snap and throws a low pass, but it is caught by Geiger here, who makes a diving catch near the front pylon to make it 26-18. Sensational catch by the freshman. St. Thomas on the PAT, a little bit of a head scratcher here. They hand it off to Harris, who gets stuffed for no gain, and so it stays right there, 26-18. Still an 8-point game, a 1-score game at this point. And so here we go. Hope with 6:04 left. They got to get something going. Morales finds Cruz. That goes for 2. But then on 2nd down, Morales throws it. And it's Mia Hastings who jumps the route from her position. That's a huge interception as St. Thomas now has a 1st and 5 past midfield. An opportunity to actually go up 2 scores. But it doesn't start out well. 1st down is a drop. 2nd down, it's a drag to Geiger. She gets maybe 4 yards. On 3rd and 1, it is a quick throw by Newton here to a receiver, but she is stopped by Madison Powell pretty much on the 1 here, or sorry, what would still be a 4th and 1 because of that Powell stop. And so here we go, 4th and 1. But then St. Thomas takes a very unfortunate delay of game. So now it's like 4th and 4, 4th and 5 here. And so here we go. Newton takes the snap and decides to scramble, but Madison Powell meets her and gets a big-time stop once again for a turnover on downs, preventing St. Thomas from extending this drive and using up more time. And so here we go. Hope only down by 8 points, 2:25 left, a 1st and 17 approaching midfield. Morales with the snap, scrambles right up the middle, gets about 3 yards. On 2nd down, though, Morales gets a snap, but she is sacked by Tajaya Chance here. A big-time play by the St. Thomas defense to now force a 3rd and 22. Hope immediately calls the timeout with 1:46 left here to go ahead and talk about it. And so here we go. After the timeout, 3rd and 22, Morales looking to get something here to keep this drive alive. Goes ahead and gets a snap, makes a rusher miss, outruns the other rusher towards the right side, and then throws a bomb to Madison Powell. A big-time throw and a big-time catch that flips the entire field here. 1st and 17 in the red zone. The Hope sideline is going crazy after this sensational throw on the run, on the money, and Powell there yet again to make another big catch. Hope right in at 1:35 left here. On 1st down, it's thrown away. That stops the clock a little bit and calms things down. So now it's 2nd down. On 2nd down, Morales rolls left and finds Haley over the middle for a nice catch here that now makes it 3rd and 4 in the red zone. And on 3rd down, Morales with the snap and just walks it in down the right side here, gets the edge, and that makes it a 24-26 game. Now they got to go for 2 again. This is the 3rd 2-point conversion since I tuned in to this game for Hope, and they got to get it to tie the game. And so here we go. Morales gets a snap, runs around, buying time, and then finds Powell, who makes the diving catch to tie the game. Madison Powell coming in through the clutch as Morales looking like Johnny Manziel out there, as now it is upset alert time for St. Thomas. 26-26, not too much time left. St. Thomas would get the ball, and Leah Cruz would actually come back in. She would find Harris on the drag, but that would take up a lot of time. Eventually, Cruz would find Campbell, but she would not be able to get out in time, and so the clock would run out here. We have overtime. It is tied here, 26-26, and so here we go. Overtime rules. This is how it works. Similar to college football rules, I think the first two overtimes, you're going for a touchdown. So you have 4 downs each. You are in the red zone, I want to say on the 10 or so. And then if you score, the other team gets the match. If you stop him, then you stop him, right? So let's go ahead and hop right into it. Oh, and it also includes PATs as well. So if you score and get a PAT, but then you score and don't, then the other team wins. And so here we go. Hope looking to do the impossible here after some tough days. They go ahead and take over on offense. Morales in at quarterback. First down, it's an incompletion. All right, settling in. Second down here, Morales gets a snap and finds Anisetic in the back of the end zone on a nice throw here to go ahead and give them the 32-26 lead. Following that on the PAT, Morales gets a snap, throws it to Powell, makes the contested catch here of Moss to go ahead and make it 33-26. Hope in control. It now comes down to St. Thomas as they have to score and have to get the PAT to force a second overtime. And so here we go, Cruz in at quarterback. Checks it down to Jasmine Henry. That goes for about 3. Following that, Cruz throws the drag route to Henry, but this time she just falls a little bit short of scoring. They are right on the goal line. It is 3rd and inches, and on 3rd down here, Cruz goes back to Henry one more time over the middle. That makes it 33-32. They're in business, but they have to get the PAT, and so here's what happens on this PAT, going for 1. Cruz with the snap, threads the needle to a diving Jasmine Henry, who extends this game for St. Thomas. It is 33-33 as we go into double overtime. And here in double OT, you still have 4 downs. You still got to get the touchdown and or the PAT. So here we go. St. Thomas, they go ahead and start with it. And Cruz throws it to Newton in the flats. She goes ahead and gets 4. Following that, Cruz goes over the middle, but the ball's tipped up and almost intercepted. That would have ended it for St. Thomas and give Hope a chance to win, but luckily it falls to the ground. St. Thomas calls a timeout to go ahead and catch their breath here, but after that timeout, here we go. Cruz gets a snap under pressure, tries to check it down here. She would have had an open touchdown, but Newton just does not turn around. It hits her in the back, and so it is incomplete. A missed opportunity here. Now it's 4th down. They got a score here. Cruz gets a snap, throws it over the middle. It's tipped up and caught by Alex Harris. A crazy play. It wasn't intended for Harris, but was tipped up, and Harris happened to get it. But a flag is thrown against St. Thomas, and so now they have to replay 4th down. It's about 4th and 12 here, and so here we go, 4th and 12. Cruz gets a snap, buying time, throws a high arcing throw, but the ball is deflected in double coverage, and to make things worse, Cruz goes down again with cramps as she is battling through it, but St. Thomas's defense has to stand strong here as Hope gets a chance to win it. Here's what happens. First down, Morales runs left. She's stopped just short of scoring. It is now 2nd and 1. On 2nd down, Hope tries to run a direct snap, but the snap is dropped. But luckily, there is a false start that saves them. So instead of what would have been probably like a 2nd and 10 or something crazy like that, we now have just a 2nd and 6, so still doable. 2nd down here, Morales gets a snap, takes off left, and Chance gets a great pull here, tracking her down from behind, only for a gain of 1. So now it's 3rd and 5. St. Thomas trying to make a stand here. And here's what happens. Morales with the snap, throws it low under pressure as the pressure almost gets there, almost a sack. So now it is 4th down after the incompletion. Hope calls a timeout. After they talk about it, they come back to this 4th down here, and here's what happens. Morales gets the snap, but once again, sacked by chance of St. Thomas, who is looking to be the hero of this game, and that forces triple overtime here. Now, the rules do change a little bit. Instead of 4 downs, you have 1. You are basically going for either a 1-point or 2-point conversion at this point. And so here we go. Hope starts with the ball. Morales gets the snap, finds an open Layla Mays. She's uncovered, but she drops it. A unfortunate mistake here. She was wide open and just drops a would-be touchdown. And so now St. Thomas gets back in here with a chance to win it. They need to put one in the end zone. Leah Cruz comes back in, battling the cramps and battling these injuries here. She throws it. It looks to be on the money, but a great deflection by Madison Powell, who comes up big with yet another defensive stop to keep this game alive for Hope, as that is exactly what they're doing, hoping to win here. And so that forces a quadruple overtime. Here we go. St. Thomas with the ball. Cruz gets a snap and finds Harris, who climbs the ladder for a Moss here. Great defense, but Harris just goes up and get it, as this St. Thomas crowd is getting rowdy and going crazy over this insane catch, and she goes ahead and flexes on him for that one right there. But Hope not out of it. They get a score. They could tie it again, and then here's what happens. Morales gets a snap, and she goes ahead and threads the needle and finds Nicole Cruz in the back of the end zone. And yes, once again, it is tied here. We are going to a 5th overtime. Still the same rules. Here we go. Hope, they get the ball. Morales gets the snap. She goes ahead and finds a wide open number 3 in the flats here. That will be Nicole Cruz to go ahead and put them up. And so now St. Thomas, they get a chance to go ahead and match. And that is exactly what they do. Leah Cruz to Jasmine Henry over the middle, making a contested catch to tie the game, as we now enter the 6th overtime. Now, mind you, at this point, almost every single catch is contested. Almost every single throw is being threaded. We got a game here to start this 2026 season. And so here we go. 6 overtime. St. Thomas trying to survive. Hope trying to pull the upset of the year. Maybe in all of women's college flag football history. Here's how it goes down. Cruz and St. Thomas starts with it. Cruz gets a snap, throws it over the middle, but Jasmine Simontal, like glue, sticks to the receiver and bats that one away. Very, very tough deflection. I will say, I'm not down there on the field. It looked like maybe there's a little tug there from behind, but that's just a tough call for a ref to make if they cannot see it. And so here we go. Hope with a chance to win the game. 6 overtime. Morales with the snap and throws it over the middle, and it's an amazing catch by Madison Powell, making the contested catch here. There's a hand on the ball, and she wrestles it away as Hope wins the game here, 36-35. At number 9, St. Thomas. A sensational game here to pretty much cap off the road trip, as the next game against Florida Memorial would be canceled. But if you are Hope, you are fired up after a game like that. Playing an established program, one of the powers here in the women's college flag football landscape, in their house where they get rowdy and they get loud over there. And I could feel the nerves. They find a way to get it done. A gritty performance by this first-year program, and extremely admirable by them. As of right now, I do not have any box score stats, which is extremely, extremely disappointing. It is the 21st of February when I'm recording this, but I know they posted a couple of stats on their Instagram, so I'm just going to read this out loud. These are their stat leaders. Anaheim Morales, 28 of 39, 264 yards, 6 touchdowns, 46 rushing yards, and a touchdown for them. Madison Powell, who is my playmaker of the game, 5 receptions, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns. You have Nicole Cruz, 6 receptions, 40 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then Anna Sedic here, 3 for 33 and a touchdown. But like I said, so many great performances, but I think my playmaker of the game absolutely has to be Madison Powell. Big time stop after big time stop after big time catch after big time catch. That's what I love about football. A game like this, oh boy, how could you not be romantic about football when you got some great games going down here in the college levels where a first-year program led by a two-way player in Madison Powell and all these other great players as well. Anaheim Morales was lights out, was clutch when you needed her to be. Nicole Cruz made her plays. Anna Sedic made her plays. The defense made some big plays here to keep this thing alive. I mean, just a great overall performance by Hope. Look, I'm not going to lie. Watching them lose to Warner and Weber basically by a combined 100-0, tough, right? But to not give up, go into your third straight game of the week and go face down St. Thomas in their house at Miami Gardens and come away with a 6 overtime win. That is the stuff of legends. That is the stuff that you establish your program with and you carry it with you to the end. Love to see that for Hope. And look, I know that flight back must feel good. You come out with a huge win, an upset win to go ahead and just build off of as you now return back to California. Now on the flip side of things, you have St. Thomas. I don't know what happened, but this game just got away from them. This St. Thomas defense, usually, known for taking pride in their defense. They've had a tough defensive squad. I didn't get to do a preview because the roster wasn't available in time, but knowing what I knew this defense had to rebuild without the perennial, pretty much DB of the year, like D-point contender of the year, Tashumba Washington. I knew without her and without other players like Rayona Baker, Kaylee Miller, Jada Graham, this would have been really, it would have been a rebuild year. On top of that, you have a new coaching staff. A loss like this wakes you up. Nick Saban, the former coach of Alabama, once said something like, once you start assuming and feeling entitled to wins, that's when you start losing. Now, I'm not saying St. Thomas did that, but it definitely felt like there were times throughout this game where they just failed to put them away the way, teams of the past, other St. Thomas teams have put them away. Now that they've lost, it's time to wake up, Another loss like this against a team not ranked at the top 10 in the NAIA, that could mean the end of your NAIA invitational hopes. You have to be, I believe, either top 10 or top 8, right? For them to be already kind of, near the end of that top 10 and to lose to a first-year program like Hope, that now has put your season in jeopardy as far as competing for an NAIA national championship and even just getting invited to the NAIA Invitational. What this means at this point for St. Thomas is that they have to beat who they're supposed to beat, and then if they happen to lose to somebody who they were not supposed to lose to, that most likely means now they have to go beat a contender. You have to go beat a Kaiser. You have to go beat a Warner. You definitely, I would say, beating Weber would help you out more than hurt, for sure. But regardless, a win like this should shock you awake. It should shock you awake. You were at home. You had the advantage. I know Leah Cruz wasn't 100% healthy, but even then, still unhealthy, scored when you needed her to. Defensively, could have done more. Obviously, could have done more to go ahead and help you win this game in one of the overtimes or even regulation. And so if you're St. Thomas, I mean, it's obviously not the end of the world. This is like game one for them, but it's now very real that the season has started. Let's just say that. Very, very real. And so looking for them to have a sense of urgency here as they move forward past this game and most importantly, past this week here and continue to stack wins. But, you know, for St. Thomas, this is a learning opportunity. It either builds you up to a great run or this could be, I'm just being honest, this could be the beginning of maybe a tougher season than what they are used to. And so we'll see what happens. Regardless, I'm excited to see which way they go. I think it's very, very interesting to follow that storyline and to see if they will let this loss derail them. Hopefully not, though. And then if you're Hope, obviously, you got to build off of this. I mean, you absolutely got to. You went into these games in Florida, maybe not like feeling the best because you're playing like 3 contenders here or just a bunch of great teams. But to get a win like this, that speaks volumes about the potential, at least from an outside perspective, I would say. And then if you're on the inside, you probably have always believed that. And that's a great thing. You build on it. And so either way, wishing both of the teams the best of luck. I'm not going to lie. I think right now, this is easily game of the year. It's going to take a lot to go ahead and match the 6 overtime game here. In my opinion, this might have been the greatest women's college flag football game I've watched in the years that I've covered, basically since 2023, 2022. Just saying. But, you know, I'm greedy. I'm open to a better game, so we'll see what happens. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about the February 20th game, Friday game, between Campbellsville and Huntingdon College here. Campbellsville University currently ranked number 13 according to our rankings, and then Huntingdon College going into this game, having played a couple games and winning a number of them, undefeated up until this point, and then Campbellsville technically also undefeated, winning their one game before this. So let's go ahead and hop right into this one. I thought this would be a pretty interesting game. And it was. And so here in the first quarter, things get started when Corrine Talkington goes up the scene and finds Monica Montez to give Campbellsville the early 6-0 lead. But soon after, Huntingdon College would respond back here. It took a couple of drives, but they would. Kennedy Young finds Deasia Williams on a 14-yard throw up the middle to tie the game at 6-6. PATs would not be good. Skipping ahead slightly to the second quarter, Campbellsville would get a first down on their next drive, but then would end up punting quickly after that as that drive fizzled up. That would set up a drive ending near the top of the second here for Huntingdon College, where Kennedy Young finds Shalimar St. Just on a skinny post for a long 57-yard touchdown to put them up 12-6 here. The safety in that play just not quite play that right and was out of position on this throw here. And then St. Just just beat her corner to go ahead and burn the Campbellsville defense and put Huntingdon College ahead for the first time today. Now, after that touchdown drive, both Campbellsville and Huntingdon College would have drives that would fizzle out, but later in this second quarter, with about under 2 minutes left, Kennedy Young would go ahead and find a rhythm here, finding Keelis Russell for 11, Kyla Rome for a long 21, and then St. Just again deep on a go route left for 18 yards at the 154 mark here to go ahead and put them up 18-6 here, and then nobody would score after that going into half. And so here we go, Huntingdon College up 18-6 over number 13 Campbellsville. Upset alert officially is in effect here as Campbellsville at half is looking to go ahead and scrape by. They're not down by a whole bunch, right? Only down by 12, but they got to start putting together some drives as they really struggled outside of that one first quarter drive. And then Huntingdon College, you know, another touchdown, at least at this point in the game where they're already up by 12, would begin to close the door on Campbellsville. So key third quarter here. Let's go ahead and hop into it. To start the third, each drive, or each team would have a drive that would pretty much go nowhere, but the second drive for Campbellsville under Talkington would go ahead and get them moving and also get this game moving as well. But this drive that Talkington would go ahead and lead would be helped out by a defensive PI penalty, as well as a roughing the passer call that moves them up pretty close to the red zone. Eventually, Campbellsville takes advantage of this as Talkington finds Alex Odom on a 6-yard touchdown to make it a one-score game at 18-12. On the PAT, they go ahead and go for 2 points here, and it is good. A back shoulder throw to Odom to make it 18-14. Now for Campbellsville, they will go ahead and get a big-time sack by NAIA Campbell that would set this Huntingdon College drive behind schedule, and eventually they would force them to punt. Now Campbellsville, right after that, would take over here. Talkington would lead them with a 22-yard gain by Monica Montez, setting up yet another Talkington to Odom 8-yard touchdown to make it 20-18 as they retake the lead. Now the PAT would be no good here, but on the second play of the next Huntingdon College drive, Amadi Scott jumps the route and returns it for a massive pick six that puts Campbellsville up 26-18 as they have now taken control of the game, being down 18-6 at half, now up 26-18, all in the third quarter as Campbellsville is rolling. Now, before the third quarter would end, Huntingdon College would be driving, but Alex Odom of Campbellsville comes up with a big-time interception. Unfortunately, for Campbellsville, they are not able to add on to the lead after that turnover, but that is a turnover that does at least sideline and derail Huntingdon College and buys more time for Campbellsville, who is trying to work that clock a little bit here. And that interception would end up mattering at the end, because by the time Huntingdon College would be able to get back on track, both teams would already have drives that fizzled out. And so it is closer to the midway point of the fourth quarter, where Huntingdon finally gets back into a rhythm thanks to Kennedy Young, who completes 5 straight passes in a row to St. Juice, Michaela Allen, Kyla Rome, Michaela Allen again, and then finally back to Kyla Rome on a check down right over the middle that goes for 11 yards and the touchdown at the 4:48 mark left here in the fourth quarter. On the PAT, they would then go for a double pass. There's a receiver open, but she drops the pass that would end up, or could have ended up, tying this game. So an unfortunate drop there has Huntingdon College trailing Campbellsville 26-24. They have to get the ball back here, but it does take them a while as Campbellsville goes in and puts together a long drive, or at least it feels like a long drive for Huntingdon College that takes them nearly 3 minutes of game time. By the time they get it back, there's a minute 44 left, so it's not completely out of reach. They have a chance to win it right here. If they score, they win. And so here we go. Huntingdon is able to drive down the field methodically. They eventually get into the red zone thanks in largely to a costly PI penalty on Campbellsville. On that play, Huntingdon College was throwing it deep down the left sideline. I think the corner just got a little bit too antsy, a little bit too grabby, and so that would end up putting Huntingdon College in the red zone. And so here we go, a chance to win the game. They have 4 downs with about a minute left and a chance to knock off the number 13 team in the country. Here's how it goes. Kennedy Young gets the snap on first down. She is rolling, escaping the rush here. Looks like maybe she would run for it, but then throws it at the last minute over the middle into the end zone. And this one is picked off by Alex Odom. This was a very, very long throw, about 20 yards. It's first and 20 in the red zone. And so Alex Odom goes ahead, intercepts it, and seals this game as Campbellsville runs out the rest of the clock here and wins a thriller 26-24. a thriller of a game here, but also, honestly, just a very unfortunate throw by Kennedy Young, a younger quarterback here who forced a throw that probably didn't need to be made, still had 3 downs, also nearly a minute left in this game, so definitely a tough one, but a learning opportunity for Kennedy Young at Huntingdon College. Now, if you're Campbellsville, they definitely survived one against a team that improved and was better than maybe they initially thought here. Let's go ahead and look at the stats here before we name a player of the game. Kareem Talkington, maybe not the most efficient game for Campbellsville. There's some struggles, but eventually came through in the end. 31 of 61, 299 yards, 3 touchdowns, but did throw 2 picks that did derail a couple drives there that fizzled out. 13 rushing yards as well. But it was the receiver Alex Odom that really turned up in this game. And, in Campbellsville's preview, I talked about how I expected this duo of Talkington and Odom to really take off and potentially break out. It seemed like in this game, even though it wasn't the cleanest game, they had a little bit of a breakout game here as Alex Odom, 10 receptions, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the 2 that got them back into the game initially. You also had Trinity Chisholm with 8 receptions for 58. Monica Montez had a nice game, 4 for 47 and a touchdown as she continues to go ahead and carve out her role there. And then only 2 receptions for 22 for Natalia Gomez, who had a big game earlier on in the day as well. Looking on the defensive side of the ball, Tamaya Woody continues to lead this defense. 13 flag pulls. Amani Scott has emerged as a very key part of this defense at linebacker. 9 flag pulls in that big time pick 6 that would extend that Campbellsville lead for them. That was massive. NAIA Campbell 3 pulls and that big time sack that would derail a drive there. And then you had Alex Odom, who had 2 interceptions as well as a pass breakup and a flag pull. That last interception would seal the game for Campbellsville and help them win it. And so my playmaker of the game is Campbellsville's Alex Odom. 10 receptions, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. She left it all out on the field and was a big reason why they were able to win this game. Now looking at Huntingdon College and their stats here, Kennedy Young did not have too bad of a game statistically, outperforming Campbellsville's Kareem Talkington. She won 26 of 46, 312 yards, 4 touchdowns, did throw 2 picks, including that unfortunate one that she just forced into the end zone at the end there. So that's definitely tough there. Tamaya Carter also got in only 2 pass attempts, and then 1 of those was an interception. So that's tough. Young also had 28 rushing yards, followed by Rome with 11 and Carter with 9. And then looking at the receiving group here, Shalimar St. Just having a good game here. 7 receptions, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. A lot of that coming on that big-time 57-yarder she scored off of that skinny post, where she just won in one-on-one. Keelis Russell, 4 for 52. Kyla Rome, 5 for 51, and a touchdown. Imani Bentley, 5 for 42. And then you have Deasia Williams with 3 for 32, and that other touchdown for them. Defensively for Huntingdon College, it was Tiara Russell who led with 7 flag pulls. Aaliyah Richard had an interception, as well as Rihanna Mays with an interception as well. And then Tamaya Carter had a sack here. This was a close game for Huntingdon College, who really has had a really good start of the season. Through 2 weeks, this is their only loss, a 2-point loss to Campbellsville, but getting a whole bunch of wins, including a big-time 48-0 win over Cumberland. If you are Huntingdon College, you feel pretty good about where you are at. A game against Campbellsville, you also had a chance to win it at the end. Your defense gave you enough time to set up a drive to go get it. Unfortunately, it just came down to a tough mistake that I think is solvable through experience and just learning. More experienced quarterback will make a better decision, and that is exactly what Kennedy Young is, who has been lights out to start this season. And so, a thriller of a game over at Huntingdon College, and excited to see how both teams, both Campbellsville and Huntingdon College, move on after this one. I believe they do not meet again, at least this season. So really interested to see how both teams move on after this close thriller of a game.
What is going on, folks? This is Gino with the Playmaker's Corner podcast, and I got y'all this week with the recap on what happened in the junior college and Division III women's flag football games here in Week 2 for the 2026 season. While there are still plenty of teams that have yet to start their season, we still have got plenty of action for y'all packed into Week 2 here. Let's kick things off with a game between a couple of top 25 ranked opponents. In the first game for our recap here, we have number 16 Daytona State, and they defeated number 20 Lees McRae 21-13 as they roll to a 3-0 record here to start out the 2026 season. This was a very important win for Daytona State as they are showing that they can compete with anybody regardless of division. The top playmaker of this one was most definitely going to be Litiana De Silva, finishing with 2 receptions for 87 yards, and both of those receptions were for touchdowns. On top of that, she had 2 interceptions and 6 flag pulls on defense. Amazing game there from De Silva. Their QB, Shania Spencer, had a solid game as well. She went 19 for 30 for 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 3 interceptions, while also adding a rushing touchdown and an interception on defense to add some more value there. Spencer overcame the turnovers with clutch play on both sides of the ball when it mattered most. For Lees McRae, definitely not their best performance offensively, but on defense they saw some of their transfer players make a big impact. Kennedy Van Noy led the way with 8 flag pulls, and then fellow former William Woods Owl Jaden Jalbert, along with freshman Mackenzie Walker and Kamora Brown, all caught 1 interception each. Another freshman, Sophia Antwi Silva, had a big game as well here with 2 sacks. Next up here, we had number 5, Florida Gateway. They started off the week with a very nice 35-6 win over Bruton Parker. This was their first of several games against NAIA opponents here to start the season, with their next one in Week 2 being against Lees McRae. Speaking of number 20 Lees McRae, they nearly pulled off a huge upset of their own with a narrow 13-6 loss to number 5 Florida Gateway. No box score in that game, but that game shows that the Lees McRae defense is the real deal, the way that they kept them in the game versus such a talented opponent. Florida Gateway has a massive game on Thursday in Week 3 against the 5-time reigning champions Ottawa University. So this next week of practice and film is going to be crucial for the Timberwolves. Moving coast now, Cypress took down East Los Angeles 19-12. Melanie Bernabe, sorry if I mispronounced that there, finished with 4 receptions for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns to help boost Cypress to the first of 5 wins this week. Cypress also had a huge 58-13 win over El Camino. Mia Cabral went 16 for 26 for 334 yards and 4 touchdowns, while also adding 2 rushing touchdowns there. She gets most valuable playmaker for this game, leading Cypress to their second of 5 wins here in Week 2. On defense, Destiny Gonzalez and Devaney Gray both had a pick 6 here for Cypress. Looking at the Saddleback tournament, Cypress kept things rolling with a tight 13-7 win over Golden West, and then another win over Ventura with the same 13-7 score. The box score is not available for either of those games, unfortunately. In their second to last game of the week here, Cypress took down Miracosta 27-13 for their 4th and final win in Week 2. No box score for that one either. But next here we have Saddleback, who is hosting the tournament. They finally handed Cypress their first loss in Week 2 and only their second loss of the season in an 8-7 nail-biter as Saddleback moves to 7-0 on the year. What a start to the year here for Saddleback. They went 4-0 on Friday, actually, with their other 3 wins being a 26-0 smackdown of East Los Angeles, a 14-6 win over Santa Barbara, and then another blowout 39-0 win over Southwestern. They will definitely be getting some top 25 consideration after defending their home turf this weekend. Continuing on with the Saddleback tournament, Ventura took down Golden West 35-19, as their offense really got rolling in that one. Ventura also secured a 19-12 win over East Los Angeles to finish out the tournament. Keeping things rolling here, it looks like Huntingdon almost pulled off a huge upset over number 13 Campbellsville, but they ended up losing a close one, 26-24. For Huntingdon, Kennedy Young had a great game, going 26 for 46 for 312 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Her number one receiver was Shalimar St. Just, sorry if I mispronounced that there, who had 7 receptions for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. This makes Huntingdon a very interesting team to look out for if they are able to nearly beat top 15 teams like this. We got the full play-by-play recap on that game on Coach V's NAIA segment of this episode, so definitely check that one out. The Huntingdon Hawks kept things rolling with a huge shutout win over LaGrange and another shutout win over Cumberland to move to 3-1 on the season so far. In their 41-0 shutout of LaGrange, Tamia Carter and Kennedy Young both threw for over 160 yards with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, and a rushing touchdown each as well. Not very many teams can say that they have 2 different quarterbacks to come in the game and dominate like Huntingdon does. Kyla Rome went off with 6 receptions for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Michaela Allen led the team in yards with 6 receptions for 92 yards. Moving on now to their 48-0 win over Cumberland, Kennedy Young started and went 10 for 24 for 190 yards with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. Tamia Carter came in as well and went 7 for 10 for 113 yards and a touchdown, with a rushing touchdown as well here. And then she also added 7 pulls, 3 tackles for loss, and an interception on defense as well here for the Hawks. Carter's value for this team is absolutely massive. For receivers, Kyla Rome had a big game once again with 6 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown, while Kellis Russell, sorry if I mispronounced that there, had a big game herself, leading the team with 100 receiving yards and a touchdown on 3 receptions. On defense here for the Hawks, Sincere Johns might have got herself the most valuable playmaker of the game with 10 flag pulls, 3 sacks, and 5 tackles for loss. Definitely a big week here for the Huntingdon Hawks. Looking now at the Cumberland versus LaGrange game, Cumberland got their first win of the season with a narrow 12-8 win here. Cumberland absolutely shut down the LaGrange offensive attack, keeping them to just 92 total yards and 6 total first downs. They had 4 total interceptions on defense, with 2 of them going to Jada Starnes and the other 2 going to Jocelyn Diaz and Brianna Taylor. Taylor also led the team with 8 flag pulls and a tackle for loss in this 12-8 win. For LaGrange, their defense did everything they could to stay in this game, with Renaya Scott putting up a prolific stat line with 9 flag pulls, 5 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks in this game. That will do it here in this recap here for Week 2 games for JUCO and Division 3 in this 2026 season. This is Gino with the Playmaker's Corner podcast, and I will see you all next time.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kodey Stoffer here with the Playmaker's Corner, and I have the privilege of covering Division 2 games from this past week. Kind of not their week this past week, but still worth covering and still some things to celebrate for all these programs as they head forward. So this week in question is from the 16th until the 22nd. And so I'm going to go ahead and start off first with the 19th with the first set of games. Those games belonging to Emmanuel, who was coming into this matchup against Thomas 3-0. However, Thomas has rebounded their footing after shaking off some rust to start the season here. And while Gianna Brown did catch a touchdown, Lillian Stevenson struggled mightily against the Thomas defense, throwing a handful of picks and getting sacked a few times. And so Emmanuel fell short 6-32 to the Nighthawks. Then it was Lise McCrae's turn to face off against an NAIA historical powerhouse here and they also struggled mightily against Kaiser here, losing 6-47 here, while Natalia Hernandez de Leon did catch a score from Mackenzie Hicks. She was having a hard time getting a lot else going against that Seahawks defense. And while the Kaiser squad did pour on some points, the Bobcats did force some interceptions with Jaden Jalbert and Mackenzie Walker, both forcing a pick. That's all of the action for the 19th. We move on to the 20th, where we had an absolute doozy of a game. Lise McRae against Daytona State here. Daytona State came into this game as a tie for the number 16 spot in the country from our very own poll. Be sure to tune into Thursday to see how last week's scores impacted our rankings. And Lise McRae came in at number 20 here. So it was going to be a pretty interesting game between two top 20 ranked teams here. And Lise McRae came out swinging. Mackenzie Walker forced a pick on Daytona's opening drive, and this squad would capitalize with a Mackenzie Hicks rushing touchdown to go up 6-0 early. But Daytona State would persevere and have a drive that went from the end of the first quarter into the beginning of the second quarter and would score via Shania Spencer on a rushing touchdown, and they would convert on the PAT to take a 7-6 lead. There would be a few exchanges back and forth here before Daytona would increase that lead, scoring in the third quarter following halftime to go up 14-6 after Lidiana De Silvia here caught a pass from Shania Spencer for a 28-yard score, making it an 8-point game. And then finally, the Falcons would try and put this game away early in the fourth quarter, scoring once again with De Silvia on an absolute big-time throw for a 59-yard score here, trying to put an exclamation point, but Lise McRae here would not bow out here as they would score with about 2.5 minutes left in the game, but Daytona was able to bleed out those last couple of minutes and pull in the win here. So Daytona State beats Lise McRae 21-14, while I am covering this from the D2's perspective of Lise McRae, as they would fall just short. But both quarterbacks in this game struggled here with, Mackenzie Hicks throwing a few interceptions here, but, lone passing touchdown was a 50-yarder, and that was to Ava Rivera, which made her the third receiver of the day, including De Leon as well as Ashley Alvarado to notch 50 yards. So spreading the ball out, a few different people making plays here, and overall, trying to keep them in this game. You also had Brown, Walker, and Jalbert all notch an interception for Lise McRae, while Sofia Antwi Silva had a couple of sacks here. And so, they tried to keep it close here, but Daytona State, I think that experience here kind of helped them out as well as just kind of the momentum they came with into this game. So far, Daytona State having a great season here, and Lise McRae dropping their second in 2 days, but this one a lot closer. And then for Lise McRae, they had a couple of more games the very next day on the 21st. And while they did get shut out to Thomas, they did battle Florida Gateway, a very good Florida Gateway squad who was ranked number 5, my bad, coming into this game. They only lost to them 6-13, so held this offense in check. So for those counting at home, Lise McRae played the number 16, the number 2, the number 4, and the number 9 team in the country. So 3 top 10 teams. I think that while, they would have liked to pull off one of these games against like Florida Gateway or against Daytona State, I'm not particularly worried. I think that they're getting a lot of tough challenges in front of them early, and this should help prepare them for the rest of the season, where they're going to be playing opponents that are not at the caliber of these programs, in my opinion. And hopefully this, or I guess the plan, right, is that this will help them as they head into league play and help them be competitive for the Conference Carolinas. Now, there was one other D2 team that did get some playing in from this past week here outside of Emmanuel and Lise McRae. On the 21st, Chowan played a couple of games, and nothing to really write home about. They lost to Lindsey Wilson 87-0, and then they lost to Winston-Salem State 6-37. But Janiah Perry did catch the very first touchdown pass in showing history from NAIA Higdon, so that is something that they hope to ride into their next matchups heading forward into the season. So we had a couple of thrillers. Unfortunately, no box score from the Lisa-McRae and Florida Gateway game, so nothing to be able to cover really as much there. But the absolute banger of a game between Lisa-McRae and Daytona State, and I think that these programs are going to be very interesting to cover heading forward. I've been Kodey Stauffer talking about D2. Peace.
And that'll wrap up this episode of the Playmaker's Corner podcast. Like I said, just recaps on this one, on the Thursday one. Look out for that one. We're going to do more recognitions, rankings, as well as there was a pretty big ranking shift after this last week here, and there will be another big one going into this next week, so make sure you check all of that out. And if you want to stay up to date, make sure you follow us at the Playmakers Corner on all of our social medias. We also have a website at theplaymakerscorner.com. You can check out all of our content and stats and stuff from previous years that we have posted as a result of covering women's college flag football. And then once again, if you have a comment, if you have some inside information you could give us, if you have information about maybe a team that we missed potentially talking about on this episode, make sure you reach out to us. We want to make sure that we cover as many teams as possible. But until next time, thank you for rocking with us, and we will catch you later.